Okay, I'm going to set a timer, 20 minutes. Right. So, get my pens out. Got them pens. So, it's been a long while since I've made a Doodle Log. And this is from one I never actually published because I haven't really had time. And I have no idea what I said in it, so I've just left it. And I'm going to work on this. And I'm going to blabber for a while. And you might hear the washing machine, you might hear the wind, and you might hear my wife working in the other room. And this is more or less the second week I've had a break from just being full-time childcare, so my brain is beginning to come back online. So that's nice. And I want to get back into a bit of art practice. And at the moment, because he's started nursery, you might be able to hear a lovely tickle in my throat. So, swings and roundabouts with it. Some things are better, some things not ideal. So I do, again, feel like my brain is coming back, so I think it's definitely worth doing. It's probably good for him too, not to have me bothering him all the time. So I've been down the rabbit hole, as one does, of obviously, artists on the YouTube especially, talking about how, they got their practices to the point where they're, I do it every day, or I do this, or I do that. And I'd love to have the bandwidth for that. But I do feel like a lot of these things, I don't know if they're not mentioning that they have other responsibilities or kids, or if it's their full-time thing. So I think it's very easy when you're talking in the sort of past tense, like you've got there, you've done it, and then you're telling people, oh, well, to do it you just need to blah. And I found, generally speaking, it's never really that simple. Excuse me. And I feel like the narrative at the moment is very much centered that way. So I feel a little bit like there should be some voices going the other way. And I personally think that art is something that just has an internal value. And I think that's how it's best. I don't think that you need this. You don't need to be a professional, basically. There's no need. Like, art is about discovering something about yourself. And I feel like, I feel it in myself, is I end up in this perfectionist area. That's one of the reasons I've always been drawn to pen just from scribbling on textbooks at school, because that's what was available. But I've been very good at drawing with pencil, and I found that what ended up happening is you just end up being a perfectionist, whereas pen, there's no perfectionism. If there's a mistake, it's part of the piece. Paint's similar, depending on what kind of paint you're painting with, but it's definitely, I find it very freeing, because it becomes about what happens in the moment. It's more of an act of discovery. And I would like to think that I have the ability to encourage people to just have a go. Because I think that's the joy in it. I don't think there's enough art in the world, and I don't think that I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping going on. There are people who have got a very refined craft, and I don't necessarily think that has anything to do with what art should be about. Like, I understand, like, sometimes it's impressive and you can admire it, but I feel there's like, you have to be a professional. There can't be just something you made, like something that's just for you. And I feel like that's really, really more about what it is. Because, you know, even they say, like, when you make a lot of it, you lose it at points. You lose that creativity, that thing that actually made you want to sit and do it in the first place. Because it's a recreation as much as it is anything. I guess it's one of those things. I've started to come to really appreciate jazz music, and I never really understood it before. I think, for me, I think that if you watch the Pixar movie Soul, that really opened my mind to it. I thought it was interesting. I think I'm that way, that movies really speak to me. It just depends how you're wired. But I feel that's, I guess what the thing that was made clear to me was that the way they're making music is the same way I'm doing this. I'm just riffing. I'm just seeing what happens. What do I do next? And it's one of those things. I have been doing a little bit of practice of figures, which I get reasonably good at, and I don't want to do photographic stuff because it doesn't really interest me. I mean, it's definitely possible. It's within my ability if I practice it enough. I just don't really care. But I always have my art teacher's voice in my head because he liked it, and I don't. It's not really my thing. I love drawing, but I want to create an impression of the world. I don't necessarily want to replicate it perfectly, though there is a joy in it. I find colour pencil things are always very interesting, especially when they've done it to a refined standard, which is virtually impossible with the equipment I have. But again, it's also skill. It's like I may simply not have the skill. I'm sure that someone better would come along and blow me out of the water. But this is one of those things. I have got a little bit bogged down from time to time with my work because it's a bit rough, especially when I'm drawing buildings and things in the pen. Because really, the thing that I'm interested in is the idea. I like the final product, but I'm not trying to produce something for sale or for something. I just like the idea. I want to see where the idea comes from, where it goes. So that's my interest. So I guess it's a bit like concepting. I'm primarily doing concepts. But even when you could look at concept artists now, and like the stuff they come out with is amazing. It's not my thing. I just like the rough idea. And then I've been experimenting with the writing. It's been interesting. And I've been trying to get more serious with it, but honestly, it's difficult. Like, you really need an editor. And editors are expensive. It's just the reality of it. And I have been doing a bit of work for a friend of mine in web development, essentially, but it's not something I'm trained to do, just something I can figure out. I don't know if that's a thing. So I'm definitely a millennial, but I think that my generation, or at least myself, are computer literate. So any program, anything, I can figure it out. I can't program code, but I do know what it is, and I know how to move it around and stuff and copy it. But as I say, I can figure anything out. I think that's a skill that I definitely learned. It's a skill I definitely have. Don't have a degree or anything fancy, but I can basically figure out anything as needed. Which, I think can be a more useful skill. Don't really know what they teach you when you do degrees. I've tried a few bits and pieces. They just don't sort of agree with me. Because if I disagree with the text, I'm told how I'm wrong, and I just don't see that. I feel like it's just gatekeeping madness. Because, how can your opinion of something be wrong? I don't know. We all have different experiences. Academia is not fond of that. Or maybe I'm just terrible at it. That's also very possible. It's hard to get out of your own perspective. I was watching something the other day by the current generation. I think people are calling them Gen Z. I think. I'm not very clued in. But they were saying that they were struggling with their attention span. And, I understand that there's like TikTok and Facebook and all of these shorts everywhere. So there's this idea that it's shortening out your attention span. But honestly, I'm thinking back to when I was 19 and I'm not sure I had much of an attention span. I sometimes think that at the moment everyone's being compared to everyone. So people who are much older are being compared to people who are younger. And I remember being of a certain age where I just didn't have the attention span for anything. I thought bloody knew everything, but it's fine. It's just being younger. I often think that in the comments when people are arguing with each other, and I kind of, in my head, if someone puts like a very know-it-all comment, which is just absolutely sure of itself, all I think is that this person is probably 19 or probably hasn't evolved since then, which is fine, but I wouldn't engage with it because what would it get you? Nothing really. I do think it's interesting that if you some YouTubers will measure their success by whether they have hate, which I thought was quite funny. Just as an idea. It's very strange though. I can't say I've ever left a hateful message on a YouTube video or anything I can think of really. It's very odd as a behaviour. Then perhaps I'm forgetting myself as I say, because I think if I was more engaged with it at a younger age, because I think when I was about 14, it's like I had a Nokia with Snake 2 on it, which, it's distracting, sure. It's not that distracting. It's definitely not the Reddit or the Instagrams. They're definitely more distracting, but so I guess I'm socialised in a different way. So maybe I can't understand it. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just me not getting it, which is possible. I think this happens as you get older. You think I did download TikTok at one point and it's too fast. I found it actually, it disrupted me. It was unpleasant. And I've definitely gone down the YouTube Shorts route before. But it makes you feel not great after a while. So I just try and avoid it. Or, I'll dip in for one and then I'll come out. There's lots of long form stuff on YouTube. That's why I tend to gravitate towards just people talking, which is why I'm making this in the first place, because it's the kind of thing I like. And I like the idea that, throw your hat in the ring, put your voice in the game. Because I'm definitely absorbing lots of stuff, reading things, watching videos. So I'm engaging with the media in one way, and I feel like I might have something to say. Might have some value. But again, I'm definitely coming at it from the perspective, I feel like there should be more... especially parents, actually, because I know that there's the golden parents, you see, and I'm definitely not one of those. I'm exhausted all the time, and I feel like that's worth saying, because I would love to hear that as well. I think it's worth hearing, and that's fine. That's correct. That's how it's supposed to be. Especially now, like our worlds are smaller in many ways. So extended family is not such a big thing now. So you end up doing a lot of it yourself, and then you beat yourself up because it's not perfect. But it doesn't need to be perfect. You just have to show up, and that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm doing here. So I'm trying to show up for myself, really. So I'm hoping that if I get into a posting habit, that will keep me accountable, if you know what I mean. And, someone might watch it. I mean, someone did watch the previous ones. I mean, that's incredible to me, actually, just that someone would watch anything that you made. Because it's interesting when you think of the things that have impact on yourself. Sometimes, they might be innocuous to the other person. They might just stick in your mind. It's quite a powerful thing. And you don't know. You never know what's going to stick in someone else's mind. And we all want to have an influence, and I think everyone feels that more and more. Are we supposed to have an influence? Is just being acceptable? Don't know. I met people who are just happy with existing. It astonishes me, to be honest. They're like, oh yeah, no, I'll just go to work. How do you get that? I don't know. Am I just wired differently? When I watch videos of old artists, I'm more and more convinced that, it's a wiring thing. If you're wired to create, it's just different. And I think there are lots of people who are wired to create. It's just what we are. And I feel like if you're not what you are, you will cease to be far sooner than if you just be what you are. But truly, an artist who is will just make things, whether or not anyone's listening. There's definitely a distinction I made with myself, is that as an artist, you should not care about any kind of feedback, positive or negative, because I don't think it helps. Because the process isn't really about that. It's very much a personal thing. It's about you and your experience and what you're discovering. Because that's what you're doing when you're sitting with a page and just doing something. You're discovering things about yourself. And I do believe that. Maybe it's different if you, like as I say, if you want to capture reality all the time. But that's a different thing. It's a different kind of art. And even then, you still learn things. It's still a process. And the fact that you're doing that says something about you. So I think the whole thing is personal. I think when you get other people's opinions involved, it influences what you're doing in a way that's not helpful. Because if the thing you're making is true, and that is something I believe wholeheartedly, is that art is truth, as long as it's true, it'll resonate somewhere. That's what you should focus on. Never the skill, never the specifics, but whether or not it's true. And you'll know if it's true. That's the process. That's the not knowing. It's the sitting and the thinking and the having the flow just appear. That's truth to me. And I think that works in different mediums as well, because I've done a little bit of amdram, but even in acting, like once the truth is there, it's sort of away from you. You're more like a conduit, and the more you try and grip onto it, whatever it is, that flow, the more it slips away. All you can really do is put yourself in the position with the tools. And I guess if you're an actor, you learn your lines.